broadcast button anymore, but all right.
All set.
All right, so I got it on pause as far as recording.
I don't like that I can't see anyone.
So it's 3:30.
Okay.
All right. I will press record and we will get started. All right, welcome back, everybody. We are at the final session for today. We've got Sarah Garchow and Shay Tullar talking about Geo Fencing. Sorry about that. Sorry about that noise. So Sarah is the prevention coordinator in Isabella County for 1016 Recovery Network and has been employed with the agency for 3 years. Sarah earned her bachelor's degree in family studies from Central Michigan University in 2015 and her master's degree in family consumer sciences with a concentration in family life education from Western Michigan University in 2019. Sarah became a certified prevention specialist from the Michigan Certification Board of Addiction Professionals in 2019. Shay Tullar is 1016 Recovery's Network's prevention coordinator from Acosta County. She has been employed with 1016 for 2 years and a member of her local substance awareness coalition for 10 years. She earned her bachelor's degree in psychology from Michigan State University in 2007 and became a certified prevention specialist through the Michigan Certification Board of Addiction Professionals in early of 2020. Is there anything else we need to cover before we get started, Kelly? Are we good to go?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a quick mention for this session. Our presenters ask that you would use the Q&A box for your questions, and they are going to answer any questions that you have at the end of their presentation. So if you type a question into the question and answer box, please be patient and they will be sure to answer that question to the best of their ability at the end of their presentation. Other than that, we're ready to turn it over to our presenters.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. I guess we don't really have to introduce ourselves because Mike did such a good job introducing us. But I am Sarah.
And I am Shay.
And so we're going to be the people giving the presentation today. And we are going to talk about the geofencing campaign that 1016 has done this past year called Expose the Truth. I'll introduce like today's topics. We're going to talk like what is geofencing, just kind of give an overview of when we say geofencing, what does that mean? Who is McDonald Garber Broadcasting, the wonderful company that we have been using to do these campaigns from. We're going to talk about the Expose the Truth campaign, what it looks like, and then we're going to talk about the analytics that we have received from our geofencing campaign. And then we're going to talk about just ideas for future campaigns that we have had that we're thinking about doing or currently trying to do. And then we're going to do questions because I'm sure just like when we were kind of finding out about geofencing and learning everything, we had lots of questions. So we left plenty of time open for questions on what this actually is. So I'm going to hand it over to Shay and she's going to introduce what geofencing is.
All right, so I will tell you that a year ago, I had never heard of this. I had no idea. Our supervisor emailed us one day and said, hey, we're going to have someone come in and talk to the team about a geofencing campaign. And, you know, I'm the old person on my team. So I said to everyone, what in the world is this? And I've been pretty blown away by it. So geofencing is a digital marketing tool that allows companies to use location-based services through our smartphones within a defined geographical area. So we target individuals and then we can send messages in the form of ads to different apps and web browsers on the smartphones. So an example of this is, say a new restaurant is coming into the area. They want to get their name out in the community, so they might use a geofencing campaign to target potential customers within like a 15-mile radius. So that would then place an ad within different apps on any smartphone that logs onto, you know, their browser within that 15-mile radius. So it's a great promotion tool for the opening of that new restaurant. So as Sarah mentioned before, We have been using McDonald Garber Broadcasting for our geofencing advertisements. And we started using them back in October of 2019. We launched our first campaign in the spring, this spring 2020. And we've had a really cool relationship with them so far. So McDonald Garber Broadcasting is a radio station group up here in Northern Michigan who handles 8 different radio stations, ranging from south of Cadillac all the way to north of Mackinac City. In 2017, they started to grow their business by getting into digital advertisements. You know, obviously this is the age of, you know, technology and smart devices. So, you know, it's probably a good business to get into. When they began, almost 100% of their sales were coming from business to business deals. So Hunter Pulaski is the person that has kind of guided us through this this journey into geofencing. And Hunter was hired in 2019, and he saw an opportunity to utilize geofencing to target youth and communities with public health messaging. So since then, their 2 biggest platforms that they've seen success with are targeted display and geofencing. Targeted display is where a company takes demographics along with interests to create a targeted market. Geofencing, as we mentioned, is based solely on locations. So currently, they have been working almost exclusively with public health organizations, and they've run campaigns in over 60 counties nationwide, including Michigan, Arizona, Arkansas, and Indiana. And they have campaigns starting in Ohio and Illinois in the upcoming months. And
So sorry, Shay.
I'm sorry, I just went through that really fast. So
You're good.
Okay.
So we have absolutely loved working with them. And so with the very first campaign that we have thought about, we were thinking, you know, what are health related problems that our youth or our communities are seeing? And we decided that to do 4 different ads that are youth focused. And so we targeted all of the schools in our communities. And so we targeted probably over 25 schools, at least. I would probably say even up to 40 in our area. And these campaigns lasted 1 month each. And we called the campaign Expose the Truth. And so when an ad popped up on an individual smartphone, it looked like this. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to hope this works, is click on this and show you exactly what this ad looks like. And so they had different sizes for whatever ad type would be on the app or the web browser. And so it would kind of scroll through all of this different information, like do you want to inhale nail polish remover? They can contain the same chemicals. At this point, vaping had caused over 2,000 illnesses. That number is probably a little bit different today, but back in early 2020, even kind of end of 2019, that's when that vaping illness was coming out. And so we wanted to get the information out there that vaping wasn't harmless and that it was actually causing harm to your body. And so this creative was completely created by McDonald Garber Broadcasting. They do all of the creative behind the scenes work to create all of this stuff. And then it was just a collaboration of what wording we wanted on there, what images we wanted to say, what logos we needed. And then they really had a lot of communication with us throughout the entire thing. So we absolutely loved working with them. And then for what happened when a student was interested, they saw the ad, they're like, you know what, I'm interested to learn more. They clicked on this ad and this brought them to our website that we created. Oh, I have to double click on it, sorry. Called Expose the Truth. So learn the truth about substances and the effects on our bodies. And so this website, if they were interested in vaping and e-cigarettes, that's why they came. They saw the ad and they're interested in learning more. They click on this button and it brings them down to a section where they can learn all about the ingredients in a vape, just some did you know facts about jewels always containing nicotine and different kind of educational things. And then on each section, we had like a need help quitting whatever that substance was. So this one, need help quitting vaping. And then we had all of our numbers located on this website. And then we also included hotlines if they didn't feel comfortable talking to someone in person, because we know that youth are very much text driven as like nowadays. We added some text hotlines that they could text instead of call, so that way they felt more comfortable, and it was more anonymous. They didn't have to really worry about the person knowing them. This website goes through all substances, as you can see at the top. We are transitioning this website into a different one. We are kind of making one for just the entire prevention of services that we do. And that kind of goes along with the geofencing campaigns that we're going to be talking about at the end. And so if you were to click on like the heroin or the prescription drug ones, there's no information there because we're transitioning that into a new website. But we left the substances on the website that our youth have been known to be experimenting with the most. We left cigarettes, vaping, alcohol, and marijuana. The other campaign that we did was an alcohol related campaign. That one kind of got a little tricky because COVID hit and kids weren't in school. So the only kids that we were targeting with that campaign were the ones that had already seen the ads. And so we can kind of get into that in a little bit too. Analytics. So another wonderful thing that this company does is they give you a website that you can log into periodically where you can see who has seen it, how many people have seen it, how many people have clicked it, what areas are the most popular for individuals getting clicks and likes and things like that. And then you can kind of transition and change your campaigns from there. And so going to this website, if we were to look at, I have to change the date really quick. If we were to look at the entire campaign year that we have done, so really the beginning of the year until now, you can see that it's going to change the data here. And so you can see this is the areas that we targeted. All of these little blue target dots are the schools that we pinpointed to be like a hot spot, or like the spot, the target geofence that if a student was to open up the app, they would see the ad in. And you can see what happens is the ad always stays on their phone. And so if they were to open it up in Grand Rapids or Lansing or Flint, like they have, these little gray dots show up to show where the ad is then being placed as they move around the state and as they go around. They still continue to see that. We have had 317,949 impressions, which means that 317,000 times, almost 318,000, our ads have been on someone's phone. And so these impressions have been either on weather apps or Facebook or wherever on their web browsers, but they have been on people's phones 300,000 times. We've had 1,106 clicks, which means that just the students were interested to see more, or whoever saw the ad was interested to see more, and over 1,000 people decided to click on it. This kind of gives a breakdown of like the daily engagement. And so if you were interested to see what day was the most popular, maybe you're doing an alcohol related, an underage drinking campaign, and you wanted to see if maybe you got more clicks around prom time or homecoming time, or if you're a collegiate city, maybe around welcome weekend or homecoming and things like that, you can see which days are the most impressions being put on and the most clicks being put on, which is pretty cool. And then at the bottom, you can see the locations and how many impressions that location has got and how many clicks that location has got. And then it targets them and organizes them by how many clicks. And so we kind of realized one of the schools that we targeted was downtown Mount Pleasant. And we realized that this is kind of skewed because that school is very small. So everyone in the downtown Mount Pleasant area was getting that ad, not just the students. So we kind of realized we have to do some figuring out with that one. But all the other ones are definitely located more in a school area, a rural like residential area. And so these clicks you can see and these impressions that you see are pretty justifiable. We think that these are strictly on the students' phones. And then maybe strictly the students are clicking on that. So yeah, and then at the bottom, it shows you just what creatives you have done, what apps. They don't really tell you the app names that are the most popular to see the ads on, but it tells you if you were to click on it, it gives you some iOS thing. And if you were techie, I'm sure you could figure out the app, or you could contact McDonald Garber Broadcasting and they would tell you what app it is. But we also did a binge drinking one towards homecoming and towards prom season. But like I said, COVID kind of messed up prom for people this year. So we didn't get as much success with that one as we have with the vaping one.
And if I could really quickly, and if you were going to say this, I apologize, but you know, some of these numbers might look small, right? We're like 1,000 people out of 300,000 people. But when we think about our own devices, how often do we really look at those ads that pop up? We wait for them to be gone as fast as they can, or we ignore them on the sides. So for 1,000 people to have seen them and for it to catch their eye enough to click on it, that's 1,000 more people that are getting that message. And it's a relatively easy campaign to do. Mm-hmm. So those numbers are still impactful.
Yeah, so on like the screen site that I kind of screenshot, you can see like the CTR rate. Hunter explains this way better than I can, but they look at this rate and they actually say that it's pretty common to be at a point like 1.0 to a 0.5. Usually they don't go over like a 1.0 because our area isn't as populated as say like Chicago. In Chicago, you're going to have a lot more people seeing it, a lot more people clicking it. And in our rural areas, we're not going to have as many people as that. And so really this number, they say is a success. They say is a positive thing, even though it looks really small. Still, even having 1,000 people or 1,100 people click it in our small rural area is a win in our mind. And these campaigns are generally pretty reasonably priced. Our entire campaign for all 4 of them, I believe, was $4,000, and it was over 4 months. And so I think it was $1,000 a month. And then
that was for 5 county range too.
Yes, that was for 5 counties. Like I said, probably 30 to 40 schools. And so they really have a really good just price for the amount that we're getting, and they're just wonderful people to work with. So highly suggest them.
And they do most of the work too for the design. We let them know, what we want to say, what the message, what we'd like it to look like. And then, they use their creative genius. Sarah did a phenomenal job on building our website to go with it. But those campaign ads that you see, that's the company, that's Hunter.
Absolutely. And that the website that you click it on, it could be even as simple as routing them to like the Truth Initiative campaign if you're doing a vaping one, or a website that talks to them about alcohol, or even your agency's website. It doesn't have to be a specific website like we did. It can be as simple as just getting them in touch with like having a therapist or a prevention person's website that they just learn how to get in touch to get help with maybe their use and things like that. And so for future campaigns, because we have had pretty good success with this and we think that it's a really good use of our efforts, we are talking about doing an opiate focused campaign, talking about youth use in our area and prescription sharing, and maybe having more of like a community focus instead of just health-based focus or youth-based focus, sorry. Doing one with underage drinking because that's always an important topic to talk about, especially I live in a college town and so does Shay, and when college students come back, it's statistically known that they go out and party. CMU has been in the news recently for all of the new COVID cases that we have because they went out and partied. So having stuff about underage drinking and the health risks that associated with that is really important in those communities as well. And then we are also talking about doing one with community health surveys, having an ad just talking about different substances, and then as they click on it, it's brought to a survey, because since MyFi and different community health surveys weren't able to be put out this year in our areas, we could get some sort of data for that. And so that's a really good way of getting data and information from your community and from your youth, is doing one of these. So, do you have anything to add, Shay?
No, well, I guess, for me, this was really overwhelming at first. When Hunter came and talked to us, he did an incredible presentation. But for me, who is, a little less technologically inclined than my coworkers, it was way over my head. But they were a phenomenal group to work with. Hunter answered every question, gave us individual time, really helped break it down and help it make sense for me, which is great. Really, really nice guys to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Can't say enough good things. We have sent all kinds of other companies their way since we started with them, because it was such a nice experience.
So that is it. I apologize, it was so short, but really it's just, it's a great way to reach community, and it's a great way to get word out there, even if it's not even a educational thing. If it's just getting the word out there that your services are there, that is, this is a great way to do that as well. I made sure, I asked Hunter if I could put up his information. He said absolutely. His email and his phone, this is his cell phone number, are on this page. Feel free to take it, and if you're interested in contacting him, he would love to hear from everyone. And I know there's things up in the chat that are coming through. Let me.
Barry has some questions.
All right.
We are happy to help, Barry.
All right. So first of all, did you have any youth involvement in designing anything?
So unfortunately, no. We have been trying very hard to get a youth coalition established in our areas, and it's just been really hard to reach them and get them engaged. That's actually something that I talked about at one of the trainings I went to, just with some people in my area, is just how to get youth involved, because I would love to get youth to create the actual creative.
Yeah. And one of my schools does have a team of high schoolers that work on a lot of different, projects like that within the schools, and they would have been very happy to help us. And then COVID hit, and the schools closed. So hopefully, in future years, as we keep going, we'll be able to do that and get them involved.
Mm-hmm. Any suggestions you have on how to get youth involved, please send them our way.
Yeah, Mike made a suggestion to talk to Susan Plant, the one that presented Engaging Youth from Northern Michigan today. The other question I have is, you said you spent about $4,000. About how many impressions did that get you?
We met with him back in October, and it's, oh gosh, it's really hard to remember. Off the top of my head, I apologize.
The reason I ask is that we were getting, I think, 100,000 impressions, if I remember correctly, for $1,000 or something like that, or a little over that for the one that we're using. So,
well, we're over 300,000 impressions right now, and we still have our fourth of our 4 campaigns to run.
okay.
I was gonna say that sounds really really similar. I feel like I've heard something about 100,000 for 1,000. But like I said, it's been a while.
Is that how they charge you, Sarah and Shay, or did they just do a flat rate or anything? How did they, do you remember?
I think it is per impression, and then there's something with how many locations we have.
Yep.
Because I know I'm doing one in Isabella County, and it was a little bit more because I was targeting like 7 or 8 communities, and so I had a couple more geo fences than
Right.
our other one did. So yeah.
So Cathy, to answer your question, the question is, do you use the geofencing just once, or do you use it more in one year? So we broke ours down into 4 campaigns throughout the year. They were, I believe, Sarah, 2 weeks at a time?
They were 1 month.
Oh, 1 month, 4 weeks, right. They were a month at a time. And we had chosen times that were around like the holiday breaks and around the like homecoming and prom. And then of course, again, COVID, which is why we still have one more of those campaigns. So, you know, we did vaping for 2 of them and then alcohol for 2 of them. So you can switch back and forth. You don't have to do the same thing for each, you know, each one of those targeted time periods. Does that answer your question? Perfect.
I've got a question here. So does the broadcasting company have suggested ways to get more clicks? And thanks for providing some context, because I was kind of wondering, like, okay, is 0.35, is that a good rate? And it sounds like it is. But are there ways, do they suggest ways to try to boost those at all?
I believe that they talk about like the more locations that you have, if you're thinking about doing like a health targeted campaign, the more locations you have, the more impressions you're going to get. And so they recommend at least having like, I think 3 or 4 per area is what he was telling us, because we were doing it over 5 counties. They wanted at least 3 or 4 locations in each county to make sure that we're getting as many impressions as we can. And so that was kind of like their suggestion. Other than that, I don't think so. It's really just based off of who's in the area, if they open their phone, and then what they're looking at, and if there's an ad. And so that's why we targeted youth, because honestly, youth are looking at their phone a lot more than maybe members of the community. Does that help?
Yeah, follow-up question though, maybe. So am I correct that there's different locations that the youth have to be at their phones in a certain location, and then the ad is able to pop up on an app that they're using?
Yep.
Yeah, and so they'll be, say they're at like the Mount Pleasant High School, and they open up their phone, they're on their weather app, and it has an ad at the bottom. So that ad has then targeted their phone and has gotten their IBM number on their phone CPU, I'm gonna guess. Techie talk is not my strong point, but it gets like their phone information, and so then every time they open up an app or something, it cycles through whatever app or ads are on their phone, and ours will always show up on theirs. And so it's kind of like creepy in a way, because we're targeting them and we're always going to be on their phone, but that's kind of how it works.
Right. One more question. So how many, maybe you covered it and I maybe missed it, but so how many different sites like the high school did you have in the counties?
So we had 3 high schools in Isabella. I would say, I think there's 3 in Mecosta. Correct me if I'm wrong, Shay. There's 4. Okay, so for school district, yeah, we did based on school district. And so we did like middle school and high schools. And so we did Mount Pleasant School District, Shepherd School District, Beale City, Sacred Heart, and then Renaissance in Mount Pleasant. We did all 3 or 4 of the school districts in Mecosta County. We did 4 school districts in Osceola County, the 3 main school districts in Clare, and then the 2 school districts in Gladwin, and then all of them that had alternative education as well. We targeted those schools as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, Susan, thank you for that. We're doing well, Sarah.
Yay.
Susan Pulaski, and hopefully we did Hunter proud for you today. Just told us all that the national average for geofencing is a 0.18 to a 0.2. So we're doing well.
Perfect. That is wonderful. Thank you. Barry had asked Shay, if we would be interested in collaborating for more bang for our buck in fiscal year 21.
I already said absolutely, Barry.
Yes.
And then Cathy asks, are there different targets for different areas of a county for different types of community? Example, rural versus urban.
So don't quote me on this. This would be definitely something to ask Hunter about. But if you wanted to target specific communities, that would be more of the targeted display. And so you would set up your population that you wanted it to be, like the ad to show up on their phones. You could set up age ranges, interests if they were looking at maybe reaching the recovery community, maybe targeting like the AA groups and things like that. You could set up interests of like racetrack, like racing or like gardening, things like that. You could do a little bit more with that targeted display for that aspect of it. Geofencing is more of just like the location. If they're in that location, they're going to get the ad. But if you're looking at trying to set up something for a specific community, definitely the targeted display is going to be what you want to do. I know it's a smidge more expensive because there's more analytics that go behind it. But what I understand is that you get to target the population that you're really looking for versus everyone in that area. Does that answer that question? Yep. Okay.
All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got another question as far as, so it looks like you guys had your phone numbers down there. If people wanted to quit vaping, call Sarah, call Shay. So do you know if any of you got a call as a result of your ads?
Honestly, I'm going to say I don't think so. I didn't, at least. I don't know if Shay did. I know I heard kids talking about it in schools. When I was in their school, I remember being in a classroom and having, like, kids were filing in for at the beginning of class, and someone was like, "What's this vaping ad on my phone for?" And I just laughed because I was like, "That's probably us." So unfortunately, I didn't get anything out of that, but I don't know if Shay has a different.
You know, I actually had I can't say for sure, but I had a parent call and said that they got my number from something they saw online. So maybe they could have gone to our website, I suppose, as well. But I think I'd like to prefer to think that they saw that ad. But
Right.
these are definitely, sorry, Mike.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that these are definitely things that we are trying to like be more focused on in the future, and like we're learning through this. Is like Barry just said, how are you using this for outcomes or evaluation? We didn't really know about a lot of stuff with this when we first started, and so now we're learning like, okay, we need to have like the outcome data of like, how are we going to like reach these 1,100 people that have clicked on it, or like the people who have clicked on it or seen it? How are we going to use like the survey that we're going to have on the next campaign? Like, how are we going to track where, like, better, like understanding where it's being seen and things like that. We're kind of learning this as we go. And okay, so Mike, this is the first year we've been doing it. It has definitely been like a learning process, and Hunter and the McDonald Garber Broadcasting people have been just wonderful to like help us learn this and help us understand, like, are we doing well? Like, what do we need to change? And the lessons that I have learned is that I want the website to be a little bit better, which is why we're changing it as well. I want it to be more interactive, where instead of just our phone numbers, they actually can see our pictures and see who we are, and like understand where our office is if they don't feel comfortable calling, but they want to pop in and say, hey, I saw your ad on my app and I thought about coming in. I want it to also have information for like the community health survey that we're thinking about doing and that we're creating right now. Just so if they aren't even going for like to the website for that, they can still take part in that because it's good information to have. Can you pull the website? Okay. Oops.
Stop sharing that first.
Yes. Let me pull that up really quick. But yeah, so the lessons that I learned through this were definitely having a better like end result of like, how are we going to use this data versus just keeping it here.
Would it be faster, Sarah, to just click on it through the PowerPoint again, or through the presentation?
You wanted this screen, right?
You're already there now.
Yes, I couldn't find that. Yes.
Okay, I can put this in the chat. Like I said, it's kind of incomplete now that we're switching it, but I will definitely put it in the chat.
Can you access that from 1016's website? That's where I went to, but I couldn't seem to find it.
No, that's another reason I'm making like just their general prevention, because it wasn't connected to 1016s. We had to make this through Wix. And they had talked about adding it to their website, but they hadn't done it for now. So this is the link to actually get to this. And we might use this in the future and kind of revamp it. But as of right now, this kind of campaign stuff is moving to our new one. And I can send that out when that one is completed.
Mike asked if you could click on the alcohol tab.
Oh, yes. So for the alcohol one, we had some just information, some did you know, like teens who drink alcohol are more likely to experience these issues. Talking about what an MIP is and how it stays on your driving record, because when I learned that, I was blown away. We thought it was really important to talk about the signs of alcohol poisoning, because a lot of times, especially in movies that teens watch, their friends just sleep it off and they're fine. But really understanding that if they're showing these kind of symptoms and they're passed out, they could have been past their limit. Talking about binge drinking and how that is dangerous. And then, like I said, our phone numbers.
I'd be interested to hear from the participants and how many, it sounds like a fair number of, there might be some other folks out there, community coalitions that are doing this geofencing. If you are, do you mind just putting it in the chat box? I'm curious. I don't know a lot about it, but it sounds like Barry's a little familiar and maybe some others. But so if anybody's doing it, I'd be interested to see who else is doing this geofencing.
Hi, Angela, if you're on the call.
Maybe, maybe not, but it sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah,
Susan,
definitely is.
Safe in Northern Michigan does it. I figured as much. Anybody else out there? Lisa Peoples, we have used geofencing with much success, Berrien County Health Department. Okay.
That's good.
Well, I guess something to look at. Midland County does use display ads and geofencing for a few different campaigns. Yeah, so there's a handful of people out there, a little more, I've heard of it and I've seen a few sessions here and there, but haven't really, don't know much about it. So appreciate the presentation.
Yeah. Now that we are kind of like jumped in and kind of understand it a lot more, it's something that we definitely put into our budgets to use for N16 in the future, because we have had success with it. And we think that now that we're kind of learning everything, there's only room to grow. And so it's something that we're going to be continuing to use. And so if you're thinking about using it, definitely get in contact with Hunter. He's awesome. I don't think we've said that enough in this presentation, that Hunter is awesome.
He sounds awesome.
He is
I believe you. I believe one of the Detroit-based coalitions uses this tool as well, possibly the Love Detroit Coalition. They have had great success as I understand it.
Thank you, Barry.
You're welcome, Shay.
Would have been even better if the students were actually there.
I know. We were going to use ours at the football games.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, those are not going to happen. So.
Our schools up here, at least, our schools are going back to face-to-face. Some started this week, some start next week. We'll be able to get that as part of our campaign up and running soon.
Any pros and cons versus like, it's probably, my guess is it's probably cheaper, but what about So the radio station does this digital media, but they also must have radio ads and things as well. And so was there
Yeah.
any thought about doing radio ads, or is it just too expensive, or any thoughts on, different ways?
Let me pull up their actual website really quick. Because they have on here not only, so they have 8 radio stations. And so we haven't really talked about radio ads with them. I know that I've done radio ads through a radio station in Isabella County, and it was like a week's or like 16 ads during the week was like $200, $300, I think it is. So it is significantly cheaper for radio ads. But even if you're just looking at digital, they have like so many different things. They have the location-based, which is geofencing that we talked about, targeted display. They have like digital direct emails. They have videos, paid searches, targeting, retargeting, social media, text messaging.
Text messaging
Literally, like,
huge.
yeah, literally anything that you're thinking, you know what, I think that we would like to have just a text messaging campaign and send text messages to people. Or if we're like, I want 1016 to become #1 on the Google search when they type in recovery agencies. They can pay for the search engine for that in order to be able to make sure that you're one of the top ones that come up. So they have a lot of different like media stuff that they can do. We've only used the location-based advertising. We've thought about targeted display because it is a little bit more like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's more, I would say, I don't want to say targeted because it's
Focused.
Yeah, it's more focused. Thank you. My gosh, it's the end of the day. I can't think anymore.
That's what we're doing. So
yeah, it's more focused on just ages and things like that. So this is something that we realized when we saw that downtown Mount Pleasant was taking up so much of those impressions because you do, I believe you get a certain number that you are like maxed out at. Like Barry said, 100,000 for the $1,000. And so if one of your areas is taking a lot of those impressions, the other areas aren't going to get as many. And so this is something that we've thought about doing in the future is targeted display, especially because we have talked about doing it with college campuses, and the amount of people on the campus would take away all of the geofence from our other areas. And so that's something that we've talked about too. And like I said, it is a little bit more expensive from what I understand, but it's also more focused. So.
Well, very good. Does anybody else have any final questions? Again, thank you for the presentation. I thought it was very informative.
Thanks, Mike.
Any final questions?
All right. Well, thank you for letting us present to everyone today.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you
thank you
so
very
much.
yeah,
Thank you.
If everybody just wants to sit tight, we're going to go ahead and stop the broadcasting, but we're going to have a few words. So I'm going to go ahead and stop that. But Kelly or Barry, anything that you guys want to say before we close?
I see that Hannah has a question, but not regarding the presentation. Can we unmute Hannah so she can ask her question by chance?
I believe that we can. Let me see if I can. I'm not sure if I'm able to for some reason. I feel like I've lost some capability here on my end. But so maybe somebody else can. But I just
yeah, Hannah, go ahead and type your question and we'll see if we can answer it for you. Perfect. She's going to type it.
also switches.
I don't necessarily have anything to add. Hopefully everybody has enjoyed our first day and you'll be back to join us for our next 3 days. I thought the presentation content today was excellent. Learned a lot of new information, a lot of information that we can apply as community coalitions immediately. And that's exactly what we want Coalition to be, is information that we can take back and start using and be collaborative as coalitions across the state of Michigan. So excellent job to all of our presenters.
Kelly,
Hannah's
I'd like to
question-
I like to add too that, especially with this last presentation, given the status of what we're dealing with in our society right now regarding the lack of access to youth and community events and things like that, this is one of the tools that can really benefit a coalition across the spectrum, whether it's the underage drinking, opioids, vaping. So those are the kinds of things that I believe that we're actually going to be more and more forced to do, because who knows what our accessibility of getting involved in community type things is going to be in the near future. So thank you again.
A few more things. So yes, we are still looking for shout outs. Lisa Peoples mentioned that. So if people want to give a update on what their coalition is doing to reduce underage drinking, let us know. I think that session is tomorrow, I think at maybe 10:15 to 11:15. But tomorrow we do kick back off at 8:50 a.m. At 9 o'clock, Louise Harder will have a presentation on prevention in higher education 101, partnering with campuses on prevention. And then we have a break until 10:15. We have the shout outs, the policy program and practice updates. There will be another kind of a long break in between, so you guys can do some other work, some email or whatever things, but we'll pick it back up in the afternoon at 2:15 with Joel Hoffner, action-oriented coalition meetings. Then rounding out the day at 3:30 to 4:30 will be Emily Rose Finkel and Carrie Chanter on Do Your Part, Be the Solution, Parents Create a Safe Space Toolkit and Resource Guide. So 9 to 10, 10:15 to 11:15, and then 2:15 to 3:15, and 3:30 to 4:30. And you can access this from the CRUD website to the agenda. But I think that was what Hannah's question was about the break in between. Yes, there will be a break in between. But anything else for anyone?
I think that's it. Just one last reminder about the McBAP credits. If you are seeking McBAP credits, please go to the McCRUD website under the coalition information, and that'll give you the criteria. We are using Zoom recording technology to let us know who is in on these presentations for the duration of each session. So you'll want to make sure that you are following that guideline that is listed on the McCRUD website. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Mike or myself. And with that, thank you everybody for your time and attention today, and we'll see you tomorrow for day 2.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thanks.